Elevation Church, as well as Steven Furtick, the pastor of Elevation Church, are seeing a decline in their attendance as well as the tithes and offerings. I wanted to talk to you today a little bit about the megachurch model and why the megachurch model at this particular time is sort of suffering as it relates to attendance as well as finances. A lot of these churches that operate in one church in 4 and 5 different locations, a lot of these churches are seeing a decline in attendance and they're seeing a decline in financial resources. And so I want to talk to you a little bit today about the financial aspects of the mega church and just what it could possibly mean for the future, because I feel like a lot of people don't really grasp and understand the dynamic of mega churches, because there's good things about mega churches and there's some bad things that I don't think are really good about mega churches. But let's dive into Elevation Church, Steven Furtick, and their decline in all of their offerings and the church attendance. Let's deal with that today on the Mad Church Disease channel.
We are Mad Church Disease, helping you understand that Jesus plus nothing is everything. This is a show for everyone, believers and non-believers, from churched to the unchurched. Help us grow the channel by supporting our non-profit causes and create more consistent content. Donate by Cash App or PayPal, or buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Mad Church Disease channel. You guys know I do a lot of research and I do a lot of things trying to learn and continue to learn and grow about the mega church model. And I wanted to show you guys an article that I found over on Ministry Watch where they were talking about Elevation Church's tithes and offerings and their attendance in their campus locations. Now, this is one of these churches that has this sort of franchise model church system. Now, if you know anything about me, you know I just simply cannot stand this franchise model of church, one church in 17 different locations. I personally believe that a lot of that has to do with, people just being in business and trying to make more money to increase their bottom line. Now, some preachers are going to deny it. They're going to say, this just gives us an expansion to be able to share the gospel and blah, 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 blah. I personally don't think so, because I think one of the ways that you equip people to share the gospel in the greatest ways of you instill in the people that are coming to the institution on the importance of sharing their faith. And I sort of believe in the Babby Mason sort of, each one reach one kind of mentality, because I do believe that it's also believers' responsibility to share their faith when they get those types of opportunities. But in this Ministry Watch article, ladies and gentlemen, you guys will see that they kind of talk about that. We're going to get into it a little bit more. But I've often said to you guys that the Barna Group did a research study many years ago where they talked about 87% of all money that's given in church never leaves the building. So this whole idea that you're giving money to God is something that people really need to get away from, that sort of mentality, and understand. Now, there are some good things about mega churches. And one of the great things about mega churches that you're going to find in this article is the amount of money that they're able to give to missions and they're able to do for, communities and things of that nature, because they have a little bit more financial resources. Now, if you're a local pastor who's coming by this video, I want you to understand this is no way an indictment towards you. I just talk about this from a bird's eye view, from an eagle-eyed view, so that people can see in the church overarching, this is something that is happening and this is something that has to be paid attention to, right? So there's good and there's also bad. All right, so let's look at this article. It just simply says that the tithes and offerings for Elevation Church based out of Charlotte continues to decrease year over year. Okay, and one of the reasons why a lot of these churches and the offerings are going down year over year is because people are starting to recognize, this whole idea of having to be inside of a physical building every week has nothing to do to really enhance the spiritual life. Because to be honest with you, you have to take control of your spiritual life. You have to take control of your reading, your studying, and really taking your faith seriously and what you believe and why you believe it. Their 2025 annual report celebrating their 20 years of ministry, he's reporting $88 million in annual tithes. Now, that's still a lot of money. Now, you have to keep in mind that this is based upon multiple locations, okay? He's saying that the annual tithes and offerings year to end is about $11 million, okay? So that's still a lot of money, guys. Now, the church reported that in 2024, they had a $91 million and $100 million in 2023. So, I mean, it's going down, but it's still a lot of money, right? And it says, with lower tithes and offerings, Elevation Church gave less to outreach efforts. In 2025, they gave 11.9 million. That was down about 12 million. I don't care what you say. If you give an $11 million to outreach and you're really outreaching and doing some things, you're at a level of church that most other churches cannot do. And this is one of the reasons why I said resources on in a mega church is a whole lot different from just being in a smaller congregation. Okay. That's just something that I personally believe, but you're able to see how much money that these people are able to generate and they're able to do just based upon the amount of money that's coming in. Now, this whole franchise church model, I'm not personally, it's one of these things that I just don't really agree with, because I really believe you can't really pastor 35,000 people. I don't think you can. In order for a shepherd to be familiar, they have to be familiar with the sheep. And I think a lot of times in these cases, these guys aren't familiar with the sheep. And, it gets to be a little bit of a weird situation. That's just my humble opinion. All right. So it's reportedly, they've given over $130 million to outreach efforts during the life of the church. So they've been giving away a lot of money. OK. And it says the church's largest expenditure seems to be the personnel. I've often told you guys, 87% of all money that's given in church never goes anywhere. It goes to pay the staff, clean the building, air conditioning. It just goes to keep the whole building going. That's the whole reason why I'm not fond of that whole model of church, right? Because you think about it, if you were able to create a digital type model of this type of thing. Let's say, for instance, you decided to go and meet maybe once or twice a month in a building, and the church, came on a consistent basis. But see, I think for a lot of preachers and pastors, they're afraid that the people wouldn't come. But one of the things I think moving forward that churches and pastors are going to really need to have to consider is that people love feeling a part of a community. If you're building the community doesn't have to become a canned tuna factory. You can actually build a community online, and you can actually build that community where you guys are meeting on a frequent basis as well. And there are some pastors and there are some preachers who are now starting to use that type of model, and I like it. I like it. To be honest with you, that's the thing that's sort of making me sort of think, well, maybe, I could participate with, the pastor who meets maybe, every 90 days versus somebody who want me to be there every Sunday. You understand what I'm saying? And you just might find, if you're doing that every 90 days, that the offerings could possibly get bigger because they're not having to give every week. Just a thought. Now, if they're subscribed to your digital community, then they could give once a month to the community. But when you get together, they could possibly have more money that they could give when you all come together. It's just a thought. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. All right. But you guys, tell me what you think about why you think tithes and offerings are going down in some of these churches as well as the mega church. Y'all leave me a comment down below in the description, and I'll see you guys in the very next video.